Well, I have two phones. It's 5 to each phone. All right. So just so everybody knows, we have a few people online, so I'm going to I like to run around, but I want to make sure that they, get the full experience. And then we're also going to be recording the meeting, so that way we can use it and put it on the project's website as well for anybody that can't attend tonight's meeting. So I've gone ahead and started the recording just so everybody's aware. I want to welcome you and thank everybody for coming to tonight's meeting. If you're here for the Riverside Drive Water, Sanitary, and Shared Use Path and Street Maintenance Project, then you're in the right place. If you're not, see Ash will probably send you the right area you need to go. It's a joke, but sometimes you might have one or two. Oh, well. But I appreciate everybody for coming. Tonight, we have, I want to do some introductions. So I'm Brian Gable. I'm the Director of Capital Projects for the City of Dublin within the Division of Engineering. Paul Hammersmith, who's currently attending a different meeting, who's walking in. There's Michael Hendershot, and there's Paul Hammersmith. You heard your name, didn't you, Paul? Yeah, timely. So Paul Hammersmith's the Director of Engineering / City Engineer for the city, and then Michael Hendershot is the Director of Utilities, kind of oversees a lot of the water and sanitary operation, maintenance, that sort of stuff. And then we have Josh Miller, who's the project manager for this particular project. Josh is a senior civil engineer with the city, recently promoted senior civil engineer. And we look forward to presenting this tonight. And then also, I forgot your last name, I'm sorry. James Howard? Yes. Howard is here with us with MS Consultants, who's doing the negotiations for those of you that are affected by property acquisitions or easements. So with that, I want to go ahead and pass over things back to Josh. Thank you.
How are we doing tonight? So we are here to present our Riverside Drive Water, Sanitary, and Shared Use Path for Area 3 project. Just sort of present some of the information to the entire group. Give me 1 second. Minimize that and just kind of go over some of the key elements for this project. So in general, we have some quick meeting guidelines. Just in general, we would ask that you hold any questions for the end of the presentation. Virtual attendees are available to submit questions through the chat, which can be found at the bottom right of your screen. We would ask that you keep comments and concerns relevant, specific to the overall project. If you have any questions about your specific property, we'll be available afterwards, or you can certainly email any of us with those specific questions. In general, keep comments respectful. And then just overall, there may be times when we have a comment that we have to get back to you with. If there's something that we just have to go back, get more information before we get back to you. So for tonight's meeting, we're going to do a quick overview of the overall project, background and purpose. We'll do a quick run through of our shared use path, walk through our utility extension areas, the street maintenance locations, along with the necessary acquisitions, both for right-of-way and easements, do a quick timeline, and then there will be time for questions and comments. So the main purpose for this project is to expand our mobility network, enhance connectivity throughout the city, provide that connection all the way down to Bridge Park, and then really just enhance the network that we've worked so long on, in addition to extending public utilities to our unserved neighborhoods throughout the city. And lastly, we are proposing to do some road work throughout the Tonti Drive, Drexel Hills, and Woodlands neighborhoods as well, as all part of the same project. So this project essentially combines 4 different pieces. I've touched on them briefly, but we have the Riverside Drive East shared use path that extends from Tonti Drive to Wyandotte Woods Boulevard. We have our waterline extension to areas 3A and 3B. We have our sanitary sewer extension to areas 3A and 3C. And finally, we have our street maintenance of the Woodlands and Drexel Hills subdivisions. For a quick walkthrough of our shared use path, our shared use path will be an 8-foot wide shared use path connecting 2 existing areas between Thaddeus Kosciuszko Park and the existing shared use path at Wyandotte Woods Boulevard. These are 2 existing connections that are currently dead ends that we're hoping to connect back in. As part of those shared use paths, we are installing new curb ramps at the streets, Tonti Drive and at Wyandotte Woods Boulevard. The path will generally have at least a minimum of 2 foot of clearance from the edge of the path to obstructions such as power poles, trees, whatnot. And then we wanted to point out that this has been identified by the city as late as 2016 as part of a feasibility study. This has also been a high priority within our city as identified by our Dublin Bikeways Planning Committee. It ranked number 11th using our shared use path project scoring criteria tool. So it's been a path that we've wanted to have connected for a while. Looking at the path, north is to the left of the screen. You can see the existing path at Wyandotte Woods Boulevard. We will be reconstructing some of the sidewalk along the northern edge of Wyandotte Woods Boulevard. It's currently a 4 foot wide sidewalk, so it doesn't meet the 8 foot width that we're proposing elsewhere throughout the project. So we'll be widening that to a new curb ramp before continuing south. As you go south, you cross through the existing City of Dublin Parkland property before we hit several residential homes. And then actually at the far south end or the far right edge of the screen, there's a large culvert on this page. So there's a major drainage pathway throughout this slide. Continuing south, we go in front of a handful of additional houses before we eventually hit Tonti Drive, where we've got new curb ramps at both sides of Tonti Drive. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about as part of this project is the existing stone wall and columns that are located along Riverside Drive. So these stone walls were generally constructed in 1940 and have been altered since then. ODOT actually in roughly 1940 went through and widened Riverside Drive. They expanded it by about 20 foot to the east side. So the previous edge of pavement, which is where the existing stone wall at that time was located, is now actually in the drive lanes of Riverside Drive. As part of their project, they actually completely rebuilt the wall. So the wall that you see today is from either 1940s or in a lot of locations actually newer than that. So as part of our project, we went to the Architectural Review Board, and one of their standards notes that the area of significance for these stone walls throughout the city of Dublin are walls that were constructed between 1820 and 1930. So ultimately, the stone wall was not constructed during that era of significance. Regardless, the city plans to reconstruct the wall as we go through this project. We are planning to take apart the existing stone wall, salvage stones where possible that can be reused in the new proposed wall. But we obviously will have to mix in new structural stone to ensure that the stone wall is not going to collapse in the near future. At several driveways and other locations, we also have several existing stone columns. You can see one such example on the right. So this particular set of stone columns marks, we suspect, a previous access to Riverside Drive. Most of the time, these columns happen at driveways. For this exact pair of columns, we are proposing to shift our shared use path slightly so that we can actually preserve these columns, where we'll have the new stone wall on the back side of the shared use path, and then the existing 2 stone columns on the street side, just so that we can keep some of the history throughout the area. At other driveways that we cannot preserve the existing stone columns, we are proposing to construct new stone columns. So we presented both of these solutions to the Architectural Review Board on December 17th, and generally the board was generally in support of these required replacements. Another thing that's impacted by the shared use path is our drainage throughout the area. In general, we are planning to maintain the roadside ditches that are currently located along Riverside Drive. They may be impacted by our construction, but they will be reconstructed and restored. Outside of that, there is a major culvert located at 7778 and actually between 7778 and 7836 Riverside Drive. You can actually see it on the left of your screen. It is a very large culvert that you could in theory walk through. But we, as part of our project to install our shared use path, we have to extend that culvert, and there will be some additional drainage updates along with that, just so that we can essentially regrade the area back to make it continue to function. We will also be installing a fence to separate the edge of the culvert extension from the proposed shared use path, just to help deter people from crossing over. Now to jump to utilities. So the Dublin City Council in 2015 accepted the city's utility extension policy, which was recently amended in 2022, essentially providing the guidance and processes for us to extend utilities to unserved neighborhoods throughout the city of Dublin. One of those, or one small piece of that policy, is establishing the areas throughout our utility extension policy that we referenced today. On the map, I've shown areas 3A, 3B, and 3C, essentially with the proposed utility extensions that we're planning to install as part of this project. So starting at the south end, so the bottom of the picture, we have area 3A, where we're proposing to install a new water main and a new sanitary sewer. There is a second portion of area 3A, if you go slightly to the north of that I've shown in yellow, where the water main currently exists, but there is no sanitary. So we will be installing sanitary main throughout that portion of area 3A. North of that, you have area 3B, which currently has water main, but is somewhat inaccessible due to the fact that it's separated from the water. We essentially have a 5-lane highway that separates our water main from residents on the western side of Riverside Drive. So we've made a push to make that water line a little bit more accessible. And then finally, to the east, you have area 3C, which is essentially the Woodlands and Drexel Hills subdivisions, where they currently have water main but do not have sanitary, and we are proposing to install sanitary throughout there. One thing that we did want to point out, looking at this map, so area 3B does not currently have sanitary sewer. It was our intent to install sewer, but due to the existing topography that runs throughout the area, you'll actually see in a couple slides that grade continues to follow actually to the north, even though the river flows south from this location. And because of the bucking grade, we are unable to extend sanitary until a future solution can extend it all the way to our northern corporation limits. That is hopefully planned for the future, but not currently in our 5-year CIP. So to touch a little bit further on the water extension area, we are proposing a new water main to connect the existing water mains at Wyandotte Woods Boulevard, Tonti Drive, and at Harbor Road. This will increase the resiliency of our system by providing fresher water generally throughout the area, and also providing access to all those residents that don't currently have water throughout. In November of last year, we sent out water service commitment agreements to properties that will be eligible for a new water service as part of this project. And that is the city essentially extending the opportunity for us to install water service taps to those properties to help facilitate construction as soon as we actually get the water main physically in. Just these agreements are a requirement by the city of Columbus. So a lot of the time we're a little stuck with the wording that they have to them, but it is just our intent to encourage residents to connect once it's available. If you agree to this water service commitment, it says that within 5 years you plan to connect to our water system. And if you do agree to that, the city will install the water tap, and then we'll also extend the service to your property lines at the edge of the right of way. If you decide to decline the water service commitment agreement, we are still proposing to install sleeves to all properties on the western side of Riverside Drive, just to make it easier so that even if you aren't connecting through our project, it'll be easier in the future, rather than you having to either trench or bore under Riverside Drive. And with bedrock, it's just not easy. We are also proposing this for Area 3B because, again, even though they currently have access to water main technically, the fact that it's separated by Riverside Drive, it's just not very feasible for your typical homeowner to easily connect in. Doesn't want to go. I think I missed this. I don't know why it's taking forever. There we go. So on to our sanitary extension area. We touched on installing sanitary throughout areas 3A and 3C. As part of that, the city is not going to require residents to abandon their septic systems or their home sewage treatment systems or HSTSs. Throughout the area, we are installing new gravity sewer, which will provide access per Franklin County Public Health, but let me restart. So we're installing sanitary sewer throughout areas 3A and 3C. That will extend along Riverside Drive from Wyandotte Woods, the Wyandotte Woods lift station, all the way south to Harbor Road, providing access all along Riverside. We're also going to propose 2 branches cutting into the Tonti Drive, Red Bay, Mayapple, and Tamarisk Court areas. Again, homeowners will not be forced by the city of Dublin to abandon their septic once we've completed this install, but we are proposing sanitary laterals to make it easier for a future connection when available. The only question would be by Franklin County Public Health, if you currently have a septic system or an HSTS that needs replaced or is failing, then at that point they may instruct you to connect to the sewer. So here we have a map of our utility extensions. Again, roughly central to the screen, you can see it looks like in yellow our proposed sanitary sewer, which connects to the existing Wyandotte Woods lift station before extending to Riverside Drive and continuing south. This is a gravity system, so the hard part with us trying to extend it further north is that you have to keep that pipe going downhill the entire way. Again, it would be our future plan to extend that gravity sewer further north to the northern corporation limits of the city, and then that would be able to serve the rest of residents in 3B and then also area 2, I believe. You can also see the start of our proposed water main at the top right corner of the screen, where Wyandotte Woods, we currently have a dead end for that water main. As you continue south, both the water main and the sanitary sewer extend along Riverside Drive. There are a couple connections for our sanitary sewer where it enters the Woodlands and Drexel Hill neighborhoods. The public water main connects to the existing water main at Tonti Drive, as well as the existing water main down at Hard Road. And now we have the Tonti Drive, Woodlands, Drexel Hills neighborhoods, where you can see the sanitary extending through. So we do propose 2 separate branches for sanitary sewer to serve this neighborhood. The ultimate reason being the topography is very finicky when it gets to Mayapple Court. Mayapple Court is actually 10 to 12 feet lower than Tonti Drive at the location where Tonti Drive intersects Red Bay. And then it's similar with Tamarisk Court, where Tamarisk Court is about 8 foot lower. But ultimately, for us to serve Mayapple Court off of the Tonti Drive trunk sewer, we would have had to lower it 12 to 15 foot, which just makes the project cost prohibitive. So we've proposed a second trunk to cut through a couple backyards to get to Mayapple, where it also serves Red Bay. One other thing to point out is that in conjunction with our sanitary sewer, we will be performing street maintenance work throughout the entire Woodlands and Drexel Hill neighborhoods. This will include curb and gutter repair, pavement spot repairs, and then pavement resurfacing at least 1.5 inches, sometimes more depending on what our studies find. So once the project is completed, we've included some information for how you can potentially connect in the future to either sanitary or water. So the first step is always getting a City of Dublin right-of-way permit. That permit will have to be submitted to our city staff for review and approval, along with a minor fee. You have to apply and pay for City of Columbus permits, capacity fees, charges. Then you would at that point hire a contractor to work on the install for your actual service lines. And all throughout this, for a sanitary service lateral install, you will have to coordinate with Franklin County Public Health, as well as the City of Dublin. As part of the city's utility extension policy, we waive 100% of our capacity fees for all utility extension areas, which includes areas 3A, 3B, and 3C. That said, when it comes to your private connection, you will still be responsible for tap fees and capacity charges by Columbus. You'll be responsible for the private service line from the public main to your home, and then any modifications that are necessary at your structure. Here we have a graphic showing the approximate responsibility for both water main or water laterals and sanitary laterals. In general, the city is in charge of the actual physical tap, and then once it starts to extend to your property, it is the homeowner's responsibility. But as part of our general policy, the city is responsible for installing water mains, sewer mains, and then extending laterals to the right-of-way or easement edges. And then it is on the homeowner to work to abandon their septic, abandon their well, and finally extend those laterals all the way to the rest of your house and perform whatever conversions at your house are necessary. To touch on it again, the city of Dublin does not require connection when we install our sanitary sewer main. But the Franklin County Public Health, if you have a failing septic or a failing HSTS, or if you go to replace your HSTS, the county may at that point require you to connect in to our lateral rather than actually replacing it. So some of the advantages that go along with connecting to public utilities include improving safety and health, increasing the overall water quality of the water to your house. There's less long-term maintenance associated with a connection to a public system, and then there is a possibility for it to increase your home value. Finally, we'll take a quick look at the necessary easement acquisitions and right-of-way acquisitions. So on the screen, I have shown in red the proposed right-of-way that is being acquired for this project. This is generally for the proposed shared use path and proposed water main. In green, you have utility easements to the left of your screen, which is, I believe, the north. No, that is the south edge. You have utility easements. There's water along Riverside Drive, and then you can see the extension that cuts up to Mayapple Court for the sanitary. And lastly, we have in yellow the PRO, which is public road present road occupied, which is essentially existing right of way, but is currently titled to the homeowner. So the city will be cleaning that up. It's land that is currently used for right of way, but we would just be cleaning up the title. We also have James Howard from MS Consultants here, if anyone of you would like to talk about the acquisition process. Lastly, we have a quick look at our proposed schedule. So we are currently finishing detailed design in 2026 and have started the acquisitions process. It's ongoing. We are expecting to have our final permitting in line in 2027 with the intent to go to construction depending on when we can acquire funds in either 2027 or 2028. It would be the hope that we would be able to construct all four of these projects at the same time so that we can have essentially one disturbance to the neighborhood rather than having to come back multiple times. But we are just working to get funding together for that all to work out. And at this time, I will put up our contact information and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have at this. For people who are attending virtually, please put your questions into the chat and we can have Ash coordinate them with us. So I will, any questions that are asked, I will try to reiterate for people online just so that everyone can hear the question. What did that say? Yes.
Number of questions. What is an HSTS?
So an HSTS, it's an acronym for home sewage treatment system. It's essentially a septic or a mound system. It's if you're not connected to the public sanitary sewer, you send your wastewater through a system that essentially cleans it to some degree, but then has to be pumped out to remove the solids.
You have a list of approved contractors to put in the pipe that's happened.
Yes. Yeah, we do have a list of approved contractors. If you would like to give me your contact information, I can send that to you. Our list is essentially any contractor that's licensed by the city of Dublin.
Do you have an idea what it costs?
Per foot is going to be a very tricky question just because of the bedrock throughout the area. Properties on the western side of Riverside Drive may see higher prices per foot than residents on the east side, and it will be different than residents along Tonti Drive and Woodlands and Drexel Hills. Oh, I'm sorry. So asking about the rough cost per linear foot of either a sanitary or water install. What would you say? I know it varies quite heavily depending on the ground conditions that you have.
Yeah. Sorry, I have to come over here. So generally speaking, it'll be quite variable. So people on the west side of Riverside Drive are going to have grinder pumps because the system is obviously trying to go uphill to get to that. Those residents that are on the east side of Riverside or on Tonti, generally speaking, we don't expect there to be too much for grinder pumps or needs. which definitely does keep the cost down somewhat. It also, as Josh mentioned, it's going to depend on the topography and everything else. But generally speaking, I think we've estimated between $10,000 and $15,000 for an overall connection. It really depends on the. I'm sorry. Yeah, it really depends on the length of service.
5 figures left of the decimal.
Correct. Yeah. And I think that if I'm recalling previously, and maybe Michael, if you have any thoughts, I believe that it typically includes the cost of the fees and everything. So that's kind of a full cost. Yeah.
What is the homeowner's responsibility then for decommissioning the existing waste on premises waste management system?
Typically I'm sorry, I got to repeat the question. So the question is about what is the homeowner's responsibility for abandoning current home sewage treatment systems. So all of that ends up going with the homeowner. However, most contractors will be able to work with the homeowner to perform that service while they're there, because they're already working with Franklin County Public Health and be able to perform those kind of abandonments. But if homeowners obviously could exclude that out of their quote and have a different contractor, so it'll be a matter of that. But generally speaking, that would be the resident's responsibility.
I think if you have to remove it and crush it, or what is the part?
No, I mean, there's certain pieces and parts to abandon it properly, but you don't have to remove the full system. Right. So the leach field could remain, for example, but you'd obviously have to pump out the solids and do some other stuff to make it safe. Good questions. Yes, Councilmember Cramp.
I was just going to add that I have some numbers from residents. By the way, I'm Amy Cramp. Some of you I've not seen in person, and just so you know. The residents I connected on Grandy Cliff, there were 2 residents that very kindly, it's been about 5 years ago, but so the numbers may be a little old, but they gave me their quotes and costs. So that, and they can now, they didn't have hills, it was a little more straightforward.
Right.
But what some ideas of contractors and how much it costs to connect to water and sewer. I do have some numbers.
Yeah.
That I would happily use.
So, yeah, I was just going to say, so for those online, first off, I failed to mention Councilmember Cram's presence at the beginning of the meeting, so thank you for joining us. Number 2, Councilmember Cram said that she did get some of the quotes from previous residents that have connected and has some information for maybe a different variety of homes that have connected and what their costs were. So, and we can share some of those as well. So, and to clarify the question earlier about contractors, the city doesn't technically maintain an overall list. We have a list of registered contractors. Legally, we're not allowed to, say you can go with this 1 or 2 or whatever. So we can provide the list of currently registered contractors that are registered to do that kind of work. But ultimately it's up to the resident to go and seek quotes, and I certainly advise to get multiple quotes to perform the work.
Just suffice to say, although there's no connection charge from the city, okay, it's still a rather expensive position. Okay?
Correct.
Each homeowner will have to evaluate whether it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so generally speaking, if you compare the cost of having to replace your septic home sewage treatment system versus connecting, the 2 are not terribly different from each other. However, one's viewed as, one that can last for a much longer time period. It all depends, obviously, with HSTSs. Some of them you can last with great maintenance and efforts there. And as mentioned, no homeowner is required to connect. So even though we've built this, if your HSTS is running well, you're more than welcome to continue on your HSTS and continue that. Obviously, when you do repairs or other things with that, Franklin County Public Health will come out and they'll inspect and permit that work. And they will allow you to do repairs. If there's a repair that's reasonable to do, they'll allow you to do that. But when it comes to fully replacing the system, or if you have to install a new mound system versus what you have now, that's where this kind of rule that comes in of if you're within a certain distance of the sewer, they would they would tell you that you would have to connect to the public
And
sewer.
making that connection fee, is that good forever, or is it?
Correct. Yeah, so part of the amendment in 2022 was that the city of Dublin's fees are forever waived for those in the utility extension areas. Once again, that doesn't waive the Columbus capacity and tap fees, which are, it depends on the year, but those, depending on what kind of service you're getting, are between $2,000 and $4,000 themselves. So water's a little lower, and then sanitary is another. Ashley, have somebody online?
Yeah, we have two comments. One is just thinking about the timeline, and the other person is saying at the end of the presentation, how do I confirm that my water service commitment agreement has been received by the city of Dublin? Also, for planning purposes, if it all goes well, what year do you foresee actually being able to hook water up to 3A?
So to answer the first question, feel free to reach out to me. If you've sent in a water service commitment agreement, I would love to have the conversation, just to make sure that we do have it on file. We continue to follow up with residents that did not return signed letters. So if you haven't heard from me in the last month or two, you probably signed and we probably received it. But I would love to have that conversation with you. What was the second?
For planning purposes, if it all goes well, what year do you foresee actually being able to hook water up to 3A?
So if we move forward with construction in 2027, we would realistically be able to tap within a year of that. My guess is if we start at the beginning of 2027, we could likely start performing taps once the line has been accepted by the city, chlorinated, all the tests performed and accepted for tap. It would likely occur at the end of that construction season, where it would be relatively quick within a year after that. So.
Yeah, and with the timeline, we're hoping for a year certainly, but if we run into larger bedrock issues when we get into it, and or need materials to perform the job, there's a chance it could go in, winter over, meaning it could go into 28. But that's kind of what we're looking at is either a late 27 or early 28 sometime to be able to connect. If the project goes in 2027. So, but when that occurs, the city takes, we go through a whole process. We send the same, very similar, how do I connect information with a bunch of other information that includes the current fees from both the city and Columbus at the time, which obviously city of Dublin's fees are waived, and then also provide some other information for, how to get a list of registered vendors, how to get, that information, who to contact Franklin County Public Health, who to call if you have questions, because we do have staff that can help you with that, and all that. And then part of that is a notice to say, hey, it's ready. We're ready to go. You can start connecting to that. So if the two are expected to lag between each other, like if we have the water done and the sanitary is still waiting, we will go ahead and try to get people, started. For those that only need water, only want water, we'll press that one forward, and then the sanitary will come along when it does as well. So just because the sanitary is a bit more extensive than the water. So.
Yes.
What will be involved in terms of laying the water line along Riverside Drive? What kind of construction are you looking at? And then will be in the right of way in the street, on the side, like?
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is essentially what will be involved with the water main construction along Riverside Drive. So water line construction along Riverside Drive is going to be occurring outside the pavement of Riverside Drive. It's actually, our water main is proposed under our shared use path. So the intent would be for us to construct the water main in the green space off to the east side of Riverside Drive. Water main would be completely installed, and then near the end of that project, they would install the shared use path over top of it. But it would be completely in green space outside of those handful of crossings and the handful of connections where there are connections at Harbor Road, Wyandotte Woods, and Tonti. But in general, it's in the green space off to the side of the road.
And as it goes north of Wyandotte Woods, still on the east side?
Yes, so I believe as the existing water main continues north from Wyandotte Woods Boulevard, it generally straddles the edge of pavement. I think it does actually extend partially into the Riverside Drive aisle, and that's part of the concern that we've had with those residents in 3B, for it to be difficult to connect just because it's right on the edge of pavement. You're going to be working in Riverside Drive when your contractor goes to do that work. not to mention the bedrock causing other conflicts, so.
So, you live, at the traffic lights beside you.
Okay,
On the Riverside.
Yep.
Does the sewer extend right up to some of you?
so the question being about the sanitary sewer, if there is sanitary sewer between Wyandotte Woods and Summit View. So currently there's not sanitary sewer throughout that area. That is something that we are hoping to get included here in the coming years. It'll essentially have to be its own project for us to extend the sanitary sewer. I mentioned the grade briefly, but right now, or the Riverside Drive topography goes down as you go further north, and because gravity sewer has to generally follow that, we have to basically extend it to its endpoint, which we're currently targeting putting in some sort of a lift station near the Northern Corporation limit, which is currently, it's a large city park space near the Leatherlip Cemetery. But the hope would be for a project to come through, extend the gravity sewer the rest of the way, and ultimately actually abandon the lift station that we're currently showing our sanitary sewer going into. But then from there, that would provide access to all the residents in Area 2, and then also residents that are currently in 3B. Let's see. Where the lift station roughly in the center of this screen would eventually be abandoned, and that gravity sewer would continue all the way to the left of the screen and then continue probably another mile, close to, maybe not a mile, but another couple thousand feet.
Yeah, so, and just to reiterate what Josh said, so, from Hard Road, Riverside Drive flows, or it goes downhill to the north, all the way to the Corp line. There's one section that's relatively flat, which is close to Summit View Road. But because of that, we have to have gravity system, flowing all the way to the north. So, because of the Wyandotte Woods pump station, and because of some, I will honestly say by chance, things that occurred that left it with some capacity, i.e. the Camden Lakes subdivision not needing to be connected to this pump station, we were able to connect the service area that we're looking at now into this pump station for a time until we can build the remainder of the project to go to the north. That would take us from the Wyandotte Woods pump station all the way to north past Summit View and to the corporation limits just south of Stratford. Yes, thank you. So, and we didn't talk too much on costs. I mean, right now, this project altogether, I think we're looking at
It's close to 7 million for the overall project.
Yeah. The lion's share of that is the sanitary. And then there's certainly some costs with the water and the shared use path and street maintenance in there too. And we were able to keep it pretty shallow, thankfully, along Riverside Drive. So it starts at about a 4-foot depth and it remains, fairly shallow once we get down to the Wyandotte Woods pump station. It sets us up well for continuing that in the future to the north. But in order to do that whole system in the long run, we can't have some of the gravity system flowing to the south, because then we'd have to tear it all out and replace it. So, so that's where we're looking at, and it's a great question. It was something that we were disappointed not being able to get it within this project, but that's kind of some of the overall reasoning for it. Yeah, Councilmember Cram.
Like 6 parcels there north of Wyandotte Woods, is sanitary going to be available to them then? Where the yellow line goes into the station, or is it already?
I was going funny on that same question. Can you identify the northern?
Yeah, where is the break? Yeah, what's the sewer? Isn't that like 6 parcels north?
Yeah, can you see my pointer? So I believe the property that is being served by this, I think we did get this property. I would have to double check.
Yeah.
The other one was zoomed out further. I couldn't count how many parcels.
It's in here.
The question is, will it serve those properties on the west side?
Yeah.
So which of those is?
Yes, so the question being if it'll serve the properties on the west side of Riverside Drive.
There's the double, yeah.
The pretty much 6 parcels north of Wyandotte Woods will have access, and then it stops.
Yeah, so it'll go down to, I think this property will still have access. I'm not quite sure the address there.
Yeah, it's very fuzzy.
Yeah. So, yeah, I use the pointers so that people online can see where we're pointing.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's probably the last property that'll have access.
Well,
And
the other conflict with getting sanitary access to those properties immediately to the north of this or the extension of the lift station, there's a large drainage culvert that happens just past it, where that drainage culvert is essentially a wall that we cannot easily get around for those properties that are to the north. So that's part of the reason that we show sanitary services ending where they do, just because we've got, I want to say it's a 6 or 7 foot diameter culvert. Yes, Ash.
Water and sewer lines must be how many inches below ground in the residence yard?
So, yeah, the question being how deep water and sewer lines need to be in residents' yards. Generally speaking, those lines need to be below the frost line. So typically 4 foot plus deep. That applies for both of those, but depending on where your sanitary exits your home, that could change things, just to make sure that you have to have a gravity connection in if possible. Otherwise, you're going to an ejector pump or something like that.
Generally, we try to keep 10 feet with that for sanitary.
Yeah, and generally, yes. So the general depth would typically be around 10 foot plus for sanitary. That allows service to basements, but it obviously depends on your home and what depth you can physically get to the sanitary trunk.
And the other question is, what will determine if there's enough money by the start of 2027 to start the project?
So the question being, what will determine if there's enough money by the start of 2027 to start the project? So that will ultimately be decided as part of our capital improvements programming, just to determine what projects move forward in what year. It's something that we're going to have to work through all the way from top to bottom within the city. It'll ultimately be approved by city council, but we'll have to work with finance to see what sort of funds are available in our utility extension fund and generally what other projects we have going on. Part of this is also a question of priority. So if you are a resident who wants access and you can speak to your need to access, that can potentially drive up the priority of projects. So obviously, if you're looking for that, we would love to hear it and just see that you are looking for this, and we can hopefully get that project constructed in 2027 or 2028.
This is the third meeting I've attended on this topic. First in 2016, the second in 2024. I understand things don't want to go with the plan, but I get a feeling that it wasn't a priority. It hasn't been a priority. So I'm hoping more a priority this time, third time.
I'll just speak to that. These are very, very expensive projects. And so when my fellow council members look to take numbers out of the CIP, these projects seem to disappear. And I've been pushing really, really hard to keep this one. Honestly, this one is the only one that's still in there. I've lost the battle on the other ones, like some of you, but I keep pushing it every year during our CIP.
And I heard it's expensive to death.
Yeah, it's extremely expensive. My hope is that we'll keep this and it will not get removed. I kept it in, we kept it in last year. I'm hoping it sticks again in this fall, that anything you guys can do to help me keep it in, such as say that, yes, we want to connect, or make public comment from our capital improvement. We start our capital improvements meetings starting in August, September. Submit comments and say, yes, we want this, keep it in the budget, but I will definitely speak up for you by 1 of 7, and I gotta get 4 votes.
So,
push hard to keep it in the series.
yeah. So just going back to the question on the funding. So we intend to submit the project initially in the capital improvements program for a 2027 construction because that's what we want to do with it. with the size of the project, we have multiple funds. Some of them are debt funded. So sanitary and water are debt funded. We have to be careful how much debt we take in on that, because obviously there are consequences for taking on certain amounts of debt. But then we're also looking at the capital program for being able to help support some of the other portions of the project. So street maintenance and shared use path are both of those. So right now we intend to submit it in 27. Ultimately, it's going to depend on what we can do with that debt funding with our finance team and working that through together. But that's our hope. But we wanted to make sure to understand that right now we see that at the latest funding in 28 should be able to align.
If I may just jump in about the cost for this overall.
Michael, could you come up here? Sorry, just for the online. Yeah, I don't want to exclude anybody. Thank you.
So I am Michael Hendershot. I'm the Director of Utilities and Stormwater Management for the City of Dublin. So that when this policy was originally adopted back in 2015, I want to say the cost was around maybe $15 to $20 million. Like comprehensively, there's about 21 unserved areas now. Since then, we've addressed several of those areas. Now, we recently contracted with a design consultant back in 2024 to take a comprehensive look at the study, because we quickly realized as time has gone on, these projects have gotten substantially more expensive from what we anticipated back in 2015. So from the projects that have not yet been constructed, it's about $43 million. So $9 million of that is for water extension projects, and about $34 million is for the sanitary sewer extension projects. So in working with our city council back in 2024, we established an annual allocation for utilities and stormwater. So what that is in our CIP, it's under our administration section. There's a pot of money that goes into each year, and it's about $1 million. So every year, $1 million gets put into this fund. When we have enough money for a utility extension project, then we will initiate a project. So the area 3A, 3C sanitary, 3A, 3B water, that is a high priority. So that is actually the first project that's been going to be utilizing funds from that account. So I appreciate the comment about we've had multiple meetings about this. We understand that. We think this is a priority. We're trying to push this forward. We're just trying to balance with the cost of this overall policy and trying to make sure that makes sense financially. So we have put a lot of thought into that. We have an implementation strategy to figure out which projects should be constructed, designed first, second, third, and so on, based on a variety of factors, which included significant resident engagement on, hey, for people in these unserved areas, if we were to extend water utility, would you be interested in tying in? We also looked at health risk assessment. So folks closer to the river, if you've got a failing HSTS, that's more of a concern because that water is now going into the Scioto River. So there was a multitude of variables that we accounted for as part of that study. The culmination of all of that, we developed an implementation strategy to figure out which projects would be constructed first, second, third, and so on. This is the first project on the list. So we are implementing years of discussion and coordination with our city council through our adopted CIP. So again, I appreciate the feedback. We are working diligently to try to make this happen, and it's just a function of the increasing cost for this overall policy over the past 10 plus years.
Yes.
I was thinking about, I live in Wyandotte Woods, and we have an entrance. And so, a couple questions concerning that. One is, how would we work with the city? Is it that we would be fixing up the area after it is, because you got to put a sidewalk in and but that would change the landscaping up to that. How would I go back and talk to our neighbors about that? We've used your beautification, we appreciate it, and thank you for helping us with all that as well too. So any thoughts about a neighborhood?
Yes.
Or entrance?
So specifically talking about the Wyandotte Woods entrance, specifically where we're widening the sidewalk from a 4-foot wide sidewalk to an 8-foot wide shared use path. When it comes to the widening for the shared use path, we are proposing to generally extend it as much towards the road rather than into your current landscape bed as possible. But when we come through, and obviously there will be construction traffic that may cause some impacts throughout there, we will be working with the city to replace any landscape that's immediately damaged by the project. In terms of future beautification, I would assume that would continue to fall to your HOA or whoever's currently maintaining that, but
So the portion on Riverside, you would cover that if it would change.
yes.
I was thinking that you have to go uphill within our neighborhood, and then you would use our shared use path.
Yes.
So that sidewalk would also need to be lengthened to that. And then it would dead end there, correct? At the end of our path, that's where it's dead end.
So,
That's it.
yeah,
There be a spot.
yeah, the shared use path currently dead ends at the northern edge of Wyandotte Woods, and that is a public shared use path. Yeah. And so it'll receive some additional, obviously foot traffic maintenance and some other things. That path eventually will extend further to the north, through the Summit View it's Riverside Drive and Summit View intersection improvements. That project is looking at a 29 construction, I believe, right now. It just depends on the overall process, and that'll extend the shared use path with that project from the Wyandotte Woods edge up to Arrowhead Drive. So,
On the east side.
yes,
East
on
side.
the east side. Good question. Yeah, generally speaking, in terms of restoration, whatever we as a project damage, with the job, hopefully we've, taken all that into account. We intend to do our best to restore, reseed, do all that sort of stuff. So.
Will you meet with our HOA then kind of discuss some things, because even on that shared use path could use some, we've talked with Amy about this too, some additional trees and things of that sort, that's just a nice stuff.
Yeah, and it's been generally unconnected for a long time to the rest of the path network, so I think that's part of it. And we didn't mention it, but the crossing that's in the middle of the road on Wyandotte Woods, we're going to remove that. There's currently an 8-foot crosswalk there that's not really a great crosswalk. It's not very safe, to be honest, either. And that's part of the reason why it was decided to extend the path along the north side of Wyandotte Woods to get it down to the safer crossing there at the intersection.
One thing I wanted to mention about that area is that the high school is considered walkers. It is not a very good walking, and we're looking forward to that being connected, so that could be an opportunity. Is that on your list to talk to the school district about that, because they've heard from the neighbors concerned about that? Is that?
We can certainly have discussion with them further. We have good contacts with the schools and their busing network, so we can certainly look into that. So are you saying the neighborhood's bused presently?
No. It's
Okay,
not.
everybody
For
walks.
5
Okay.
years it's been because of just costs and things of that. They made a decision in the whole school district that if you are a mile away, then you are a walker. But really, it's an unfortunate experience for our high schoolers. It's a tough walk.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that would be, and the school district has thought about having a bus stop there, right on Riverside, pick up students, drop off, but nothing came from it because it doesn't fit very well. But that could be a discussion too.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other general project questions? Yeah.
So the walking path is about 8 feet wide.
Yes.
What's the closest distance that it would be from the street to the edge of the walking path?
So generally speaking, both for pedestrian safety and for comfortability, we are proposing the edge of this shared use path to be, I want to say it's between 10 and 12 foot at the minimum. So you're typically at least 10 foot off of the edge of Riverside Drive, which even 10 foot, just to try to give you some sense of comfortability as you walk through there. Obviously, it's a high-speed road. There's a lot of truck traffic.
some of the path, too, especially when it comes to the city property, we're going to use topography. It'll be kind of up elevated a bit higher than the roadway itself. That really comes in, we go into this area. So once you get about 2 homes north of Tonti, the path is actually going to be kind of up about 5-ish feet away from the roadway. So it'll have that 10-foot separation. Then grade wise, it's also going to be separated a bit as well. So, and then it'll be able to utilize the park space a bit more to give a little more space. So we did our best to try and, be cognizant of where the residents' homes were and not get it too close to their property, but also try to make sure we had a safe area that gives enough shy distance for everybody. It's a good question. So it is 7:30. So unless there's any other general pressing questions, which these have been great. I love your questions so far. And assuming there's no new ones online, Ash, I'm going to go ahead and say we'll go ahead and close our overall meeting. Myself and Josh and Paul and Michael and Ash are all here to discuss or answer any questions you may have. We do have a couple sets of plans if you want to talk specifically about the engineering speak and go through that work, but or anything specific to your property itself, we can also address that. So anybody online, feel free. We'll end up finishing our recording and closing out the WebEx, but anybody online, please feel free to email either Josh or myself. I can't find the mouse here, but and you can email us at those email addresses or phone calls. Yes, we still answer phones, don't worry. And we can try to address any items or questions you may have. So I appreciate everybody's time. I appreciate you coming and look forward to talking with you more and having more conversations. And if you happen to be one of the owners that is working the acquisition process, please feel free to come up and talk with all of us. Okay? Thank you.